Hello and welcome back. I thought I'd show you my, oh, where's he going? He's scratching himself. Show you my companion as I paint. But now I'll try to set up the shot here. But we're back painting the Tour de France. And we're going to go for a lovely little view of the roads of Switzerland, which is where the tour has gotten to now. That was Pippin. He's a good buddy and he loves to just hang his head over where I work at. Oh, now he sees something. So I'm going to lay out that view you just saw on the TV. Every once in a while it's nice to show just the roads the tour rides on. These are some of the lead vehicles. And then right now the peloton is all strung out. Which is interesting because at this point they've got a breakaway that they don't really want to catch until they get to the end of the stage. So I don't know exactly why they're racing so hard. And then after that long line, then you get to sort of the fat part of the peloton. I've heard it described as the snake who's just swallowed a rat. And then it starts tagging back off again. And I've had the opportunity to be in Switzerland, and it is just absolutely gorgeous and beautifully maintained. They were just chastising one of the commentators for walking around barefoot, the guy used to do in the local color, Steve Perino, for walking barefoot and hope his feet are safe. And I'm like, he's in Switzerland and it's spotlessly clean. The ground in the Switzerland is probably cleaner than many restaurant kitchens at that. I mean, it's just spotless. I could never live there. I'm too disorganized. So, and actually he was walking in a lake, the Lac de Joie, which is what's going to be in this painting. For Switzerland, you can still see the effects of the glaciers cutting gouges, valleys through the mountains. It's a lot harder. Most other countries, except for the Alps, particularly the Swiss Alps, but also the French Alps, to really see, and, let's be fair, the Italians have their set Alps too, to see just how the glaciers form the valleys. So that sort of lays it out. Little indication of these trees on the edge here. I'll do that more with paint. Anytime I draw these pine trees, I can't help but think of oh shoot, his name just went out of my head. The Happy Tree guy. Title it, as always. And sign and date. And now I'm ready to start laying in the color. Now this will be a color scheme that's going to be almost entirely analogous being the colors next to each other on the color wheel. You know, basically nature is analogous as opposed to an analogy. So there's very little warm color to start with is what that means. Just the rooftops of the barn here, and maybe little hints of color in the Peloton. And they often refer to, as the stage gets close to the end of the stage, the day gets close to the end of the stage, whatever, they get color blocking when all the teams sort of bunch up together. And you get these little blocks of color in the tour, in the Peloton, and as you look down for the helicopter, you can see these little clumps of various colors. So just about done with anything that isn't going to be sorry for the pause there. You know, it is a little difficult to think what I want to say and think what I want to paint simultaneously. I try, but that is the one downside of doing these videos. Oh, that was not good. Good thing I'm doing an analogous. So here's a perfect example of making a watercolor work. So now I've got this dilemma of having dropped that brush and dropped blue everywhere. So hopefully I can work that in to what I'm doing and it won't be a problem. We'll see how it goes. So now you get to see this is like, okay, do I abandon that effort, throw it aside, or do I make the mistake work? And I think I'm going to be able to make that mistake work. Now I might pull off some of that pigment so that this mountain in the distance looks like it's in the distance. So again, as I talked yesterday about atmospheric perspective, so it's as things get further and further away, the color gets paler, bluer, less distinct, and as it approaches, yeah, I think I'm going to be able to work around that spill. As it approaches, it gets more distinct, the color's sharper. Of course, the details are sharper. You start to see, think of it this way, there's all this water vapor you're looking through, and so that's going to obscure what's in the distance. So not only do you have the forced perspective, the things receding into the picture plane, but you also have the sharpness of color. As another factor to show that things are closer and further. So now you can see I'm making this little dabby action because this is just a forest on the far side of the lake. All right, and then now we've got the coastline on the far side. And again, able to get rid of that mistake. And of course, the grasses are going to be more brightly colored than the trees are. But you've also got some trees right out along the coastline here. And in this case, because I'm sort of working my way down, I'm going to break my rolls and now switch over to the blue of the waters. That was one of the things I saw in Switzerland, but it doesn't appear here, as the lakes can be very jewel, almost jade color, because of all the minerals that run off the mountains. So, and there's also, this is another thing about leaving white behind. So the coastline, because this is all mountain, this is all stone. The coastline is white stone, so it has this look of a white edge. And the only way to get that white edge is to leave the paper showing. And so you can also see with the water, I'm leaving just a little bit of the paper popping through. So that's one of the many things. Now, I don't normally paint landscapes in my regular work. And as you've seen thus far, I don't usually paint many vista views of the tour, although that's a big part of it. You know, I have talked to people who really don't watch the tour for the bike racing, but watch it for this sort of travel log of Europe. And certainly, this is a beauty shot of just that. So now I'm going to move into these closer pine trees. So I'm going to use this darker to sort of start getting the undershadow of the wood's edge. Notice again I'm doing this dabbing motion. Sort of my version of happy trees. Going to make it a little darker now as well. Right down that edge. So it's that shadow as we transition from the grassland to the forest edge. Okay, now it's just a series of layers of value and tone of green. So, you know, a little bit more yellow than that first one. Dabbing again. So I'm using the point of the brush to help show the points of the trees. I don't know why I can't remember the name of Mr. Happy Trees. I want to say Bob Fosse, but I know that's not right because that's the dance choreographer and dancer. You can watch him on public. So I'll look it up and put the name in the comments section. It's really starting to bug me. So again, working on my happy trees. You know, I'm again, just as there's not a lot of detail in the Peloton, I'm looking to communicate the essence of the image. Not looking for hyperrealism. It'd be awful hard to do if I was interested on such a small format. I mean, there are people who do that. I've got a beautiful print, an etching, and the etching itself is a country road, church, telephone lines, etc. And it's 2 by 2 inches, and it's incredibly detailed. The artist has done a number of postage stamps, so he's used to working on a small scale. So as we get closer, I want those trees to be a touch more. So I'm going to lay in some bright here, and then I'm going to come back in. So I'm going to let that dry for a second before I come back in, because if I lay color on top of that now, it will just sort of puddle out and not give me any definition. So while you can't build up layers of watercolor to change it, you can build up layers and actually use each layer to help inform the color beneath it. So in this forest, I don't really want any white popping through, so by laying that in there, I will avoid having that. I've got that other wash of green below it to prevent, so that will be my white paper in the background, of course, obviously not white. So, and in terms of scale, I'm not going to try to show blades of grass. I mean, think how big of a blade of grass is compared to a pine tree. Okay, that's pine forest is probably dry enough. The thing I never said is, as I'm painting down, I have had the problem of dragging my finger. You can see the way I leave my finger there sometimes to support my hand and the paintbrush. And sometimes that, so I can see right now, I've got my pinky on the ground on this chunk of drywall that I use to support my hand, and I'll drag it through the paint occasionally if I have to paint at this lower corner first. So that's part of the reason why I'm painting from top to bottom. It's not normally the way I work. I like to work on the whole thing at once. So we're just closing in here. I'm going to do shoot. You're seeing all the problems here today. Pippin has changed locations. He's now over on the floor. Of course, there's also my poodle George, who sleeps on the chair behind me. He's an old dog. He spends a lot of time sleeping. And I do fit into the, do believe you should stick with the let sleeping dogs or lie. So George spends a lot of time these days just sleeping. And that's fine. So just about done here. And that gives me time to remind you to, if you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like what you see and you want to comment on it, give it a thumbs down. I'd love to hear why you don't like it. I really would. Don't have a frail ego. If you don't like it, you think I'm doing something ridiculous, you know, your opinions are valid, and you know, I'm always willing to learn more. I mean, that's one of the reasons I keep painting, you know. So, but anyway, if you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. Tell me why either way. I do value your opinion. You know, and I won't be snarky, particularly if you're not. So I just want to come back and get a little bit of this granite cliff face. And maybe just a little bit more color down here. The race car is always red, the lead vehicle. All right, I think that does that. Thanks for taking the time to look. You can also see the rest of my artwork at gregleach.com and check out the blog at theartofcycling.blogspot.com. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I do truly appreciate it.